Cheers, guys. Epyx 911, welcome to the Thursday, October 12th, 2017 edition of VR News. I want to start things off before we go into our first story, which has to do with TPCAST. Also on that topic, had a viewer I was chatting with on Twitter mention to me that they had an order canceled via the Microsoft Store for a Vive TPCAST unit. So just really curious if anyone else out there has had this happen to them. The reason he was given was that Microsoft had overcommitted the number of units, which, is pretty lame at the best of times. Hopefully he ends up with one, but do let me know if you've had this happen. So speaking of TPCAST, Michael Liu, the CEO of TPCAST, speaking at the Connect 4 event today, saying TPCAST is committed to support the Oculus Rift HMD with our unique wireless technology solutions and provide VR users a high-quality and immersive VR encounter. With the TPCAST wireless adapter, we will be changing the VR usage and experience by providing the complete freedom of movement with no cables attached. According to TPCAST, they are going to have it available for Oculus by the end of the fourth quarter 2017. And next up, we really haven't had a lot to talk about Daydream or Gear VR-wise when it comes to games. Sure, there's games out there, a lot of them just passable fare, in my opinion. There are some gems, but pretty few and far in between. Some of that has to do with just the limitations of the technology. Well, here's an example of the type of thing we have talked about here on the channel. Chris Bauer had mentioned this, encouraging devs to look at non-VR titles and port them. Well, that's exactly what's happened here. Republique VR. This was a game for the PC, originally available on Steam. It still is. Announced on stage at Oculus Connect yesterday that it was coming to the Gear VR. The developer bringing the full experience over to VR, containing all 5 episodes of the original series, promising about 10 to 15 hours of gameplay. It's a stealth game with stealth mechanics, takes place in a Big Brother type society. You play the part of Hope. She's a young revolutionary who, in addition to stealth skills, knows how to hack computers. Republique VR due for release first on Gear VR this winter. Hopefully, after that, it comes to some other platforms. And our next story, not wanting Oculus to get all the headlines this week, Vive Studios and Squeenix just released the English version of Million Arthur VR onto the HTC Vive. Japanese developer Gree, the studio behind Million Arthur, which itself is a card-based action game that was previously available for mobile platforms. The combat in the game is turn-based. It's not real-time, which that should be very interesting. I know we've got a few other examples of that out there, but very interesting. The game's going to cost you $39.99. And this last one, couple of stories that I want to talk about at the same time and do it editorial style. It has to do with Nate Mitchell taking to the stage today at the Connect 4 event and talking about the gap or trough of disillusionment that we've so often talked about. And I love what he had to say. He said, "We did build up a lot of hype, and we really believe in that hype. The potential for VR is a computing platform. It's going to be a transformative thing. We always said this is a decade-plus journey, but everyone's expectations got ahead of themselves, maybe not Oculus, but definitely in the media. Our goal to continue growing the ecosystem of users and developers every single year we move forward." Now, if you still had some reservations, Mark Zuckerberg also took to the stage, and his lofty goal, well, it is to see 1 billion virtual reality users. And I do think it's important for goals, think big, but at the same time, they have to be realistic. I'm not saying it's not realistic. After all, I watched thinking Facebook at the time was never going to catch up to MySpace. basically crushed it by 2008. They were in the tens of millions of users, and now 1.86 billion active, or I don't know if it's active, but overall unique accounts, which is huge. That's almost a quarter of the people on this planet. And is that an exact number? Probably not. It's probably a lot lower. There might be duplicate accounts in there, etc. But let's just cut that in half. We're still pretty much at a billion, which is still huge. So yeah, is virtual reality going to get there? I do believe one day, yes, it's going to be that prolific. But is that going to happen, as we kind of cruise out of this gap or trough of disillusionment? No, I don't think it's going to happen within 5 to 10 years. Not even frickin' close. But it is nice to see that they are in it for the long haul. And that's when I talk about being more concerned with the game, the experience, the technology, and not the brand. This is why we're still at that stage where we need companies that have absolute unwavering faith in the product. Could it just be doublespeak to appease investors? Of course it could, but I suspect that's not the case here. They made a significant investment in purchasing Oculus, they being Facebook. I see them in this for the long haul. And I think it's going to be the same thing with Valve, whether their partner is HTC, whether that morphs, and we know what happened there about a week ago. We're in pretty good stead here. I think things are definitely moving. And as long as we can keep growth, positive growth, whether it's super fast, slower than anticipated, probably a moot point if they truly are in for the long haul. What I would love to see, though, is just better marketing. I harp on it all the time because it's so disappointing to me. You sometimes feel, and I don't claim to be an expert by no means, but sometimes it seems like you could come up with a better idea just chatting with your buddies for a few minutes than people who get paid a lot more money and are part of big marketing corporations do. And yet they don't do it. With all the money floating around, come up with better marketing, guys. Please, please. We all want virtual reality to succeed. And marketing isn't just as simple as saying, here's a commercial or here's a demo booth. You've got to be willing to go that extra yard, just like you are for the long haul for the industry as a whole. Marketing has to have that same due diligence. That's just my 2 cents on that. Guys, let me know what you think. Other than that, we're gearing up for Game and Friday tomorrow, guys. Also released a video, which is a behind the scenes. I talked about this the other day, only if you're interested. Otherwise, it could put you into a coma. I'm not kidding. It's pretty dry stuff for the uninitiated if you're not into that kind of thing. But if you develop, you're thinking of doing it for YouTube, well, give it a watch. Guys, as always, cheers, and we will catch you Game and Friday tomorrow.